After there were two well-received Bond movies, the franchise actually reached new commercial heights with 1964's Goldfinger. It was so popular that some of the theaters had to screen the movie 24 hours a day to meet the demands of the audiences. According to the Guinness Book of World Records, Goldfinger is the fastest grossing movie ever made. Sean Connery's third outing as 007 has by many fans thought to be his greatest work, and possibly one of the greatest shows in the actual franchise itself. The film is based on the 1959 novel that carries the same name by Ian Fleming. The film stars Sean Connery in the title role as the fictional agent James Bond. It also stars Honor Blackman as Bond girl Pussy Galore and Gert Frube as the title character of Goldfinger. Shirley Eaton is also in the film, and she plays the iconic Bond girl Jill Masterson. Sean Connery actually never traveled to the United States to film in this movie. Every scene in which he appears to be in the U.S. was actually filmed at Pinewood Studios just outside of London. And this is kind of evident when you see Bond walk into the room to discover the golden corpse of Jill laying on the bed. When he walks in the room, he flips the light switch downward to turn the light on. And this is the way the light switches in Britain are turned on, by flipping them downward instead of up. This movie showcases the first laser beam for a 007 movie. In the original script, the scene actually had a spinning buzzsaw, as in the novel, until they decided that such an image had kind of become commonplace and unoriginal. When Shirley Bassey recorded the theme song, she was singing as the opening credits were running on the screen in front of her, so that she could match the vocals with the scene. When she hit her final high note, the titles kept running, and she was forced to hold that note until she almost passed out. Now, the recreation of the Fort Knox repository at the Pinewood Studios was just incredibly accurate. And this is all considering that no one involved in this movie had been allowed inside the real location for obvious security reasons. The set looked so real that a 24-hour guard was placed on the Fort Knox set at Pinewood so that people would not steal the gold bar props. There was also a letter that was sent to the production company from the Fort Knox controller congratulating them on his team's recreation of the famous gold depository. Now, initially, Aston Martin was really reluctant to part with two of their cars for the production. The producers actually had to pay Aston Martin for the use of them, but after the success of this movie, they never had to pay for another Aston Martin again. Now, the producers actually really wanted Orson Welles to play Goldfinger, but they found out that Welles was just too expensive. They ended up hiring Gert Frube, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not really sure if I am. But they hired him, and they kind of got into it with him because he wanted a portion of the film's profits. And after all was said and done, they felt like they probably could have hired Orson Welles for about the same price. Now, it's kind of funny to notice that Goldfinger wears yellow or a gold item of clothing in virtually every scene of the movie. In the one scene that he appears not to do this, where he wears a U.S. Army colonel's uniform, he actually carries a gold revolver this time. As with the first two James Bond films, Ian Fleming visited the set during April of 1964. He arrived at D Stage on Pinewood Studios, where they were filming the Fontainebleau hotel scene. Sadly, he died less than a month before the movie's release in August of 1964. Now, the role of Oddjob was the first screen role for the Japanese-American weightlifter and professional wrestler Harold Sakata. It was such a success for him that it started a second career for him in movies, television, and commercials. Now, Sean Connery actually hurts his back during the fight sequence with Oddjob, and this happens in the Fort Knox scene. This incident actually delayed filming for some while, and some said that Connery actually used the injury to get a better deal out of the producers for the next 007 movie. This was the second most popular Bond movie with paying audiences, racking up $130 million in ticket sales. The most popular was Thunderball in 1965, and it had $140 million in paid admissions. Now, the success of this movie and Thunderball just propelled Sean Connery to the top of the list of A-name actors for that time frame. It's even said that Steven Spielberg liked this movie so much that he actually bought an Aston Martin due to the impact that the movie had upon him. There was equipment and gadgetry that was developed for the Aston Martin car, which actually wasn't used in the finished movie. And those included front and back overriders for ramming other vehicles, a weapons tray under the driver's seat, a headlights chamber containing triple spiked nail clusters for firing at enemies, a radio telephone inside the driver's door paneling, and a thermos with a built-in hand grenade. I find it funny that the Chrysler Corporation was one of the sponsors of the movie when it actually hit American television, but the one thing they required them to do was to edit out the part where Goldfinger remarks that automobiles are killing 60,000 Americans every 2 years. Now, some of Miss Galore's all-women flying circus was actually played by men wearing blonde wigs. Now, this movie really pushes the censors to the limit for that time period. I look back on this and I can't believe that they allowed this to go on during that time. The suggestive nature of Miss Galore's name, played by Honor Blackman, is just over the top, and it definitely achieves the shock value that it was trying to accomplish. It's said that during interviews when they were promoting the film, she would repeatedly say her name just to shock people, and it worked. Now, when it actually appeared in the United States, it was promoted in a different way. They didn't actually use Miss Galore's first name in the marketing of it. They were allowed to use it during the presentation, but they couldn't actually show it in any of the print media. Now, it's said that originally Miss Blackman, when she introduces herself to James Bond, and she introduces herself as Pussy Galore, he responds, "I must be dreaming." But the original script had Bond replying, "I know you are, but what's your name?" They believe that this was just too suggestive, and without a doubt it is. I'm just still blown away that this got through the censors. It's amazing. Now, Honor Blackman had a real distaste for Sean Connery later on in life. Just a few years back, she was actually offered by the British government the CBE. The CBE is along the same lines as knighthood in the British government. And she actually declined this award and just felt like she didn't need to get it. And she criticized Sean Connery numerous times for accepting his knighthood from the British government. And he doesn't even live in Britain anymore. He lived in the Bahamas for many years. She stated that she just disapproved of him strongly now. And she just couldn't believe that he would accept a title from a country that he doesn't even pay taxes in anymore. She always stated that he wanted it both ways. She didn't feel like his principles were very high. She was definitely a very opinionated woman and kind of an oddball. She said in numerous interviews that she was really selfish and that she wouldn't be able to ever live with anybody. But it's pretty obvious that her like for Sean Connery had sure declined. Due to the success of this movie, the spy car, the Aston Martin, gained a nickname, the most famous car in the world. Sales of the Aston Martin increased by 50% after the release of the movie. I remember there were toys of this Aston Martin, and that was just what every kid wanted. I remember I saved my money and actually bought one of these cars. It had the flipping license plate. It had the rims that come out of the center spokes of the wheel to cut up other tires. It was such a cool toy. Every kid wanted one of these. Now, in the movie, Tilly Masterson's Ford Mustang was supposedly the first appearance by a Mustang in a movie. The Mustang was introduced in April of 1964, and this movie was released in December. Ford supplied many of the cars to the movie, including the CIA agent's Thunderbird, all of Goldfinger's goon cars, and the Lincoln Continental that is crushed. Goldfinger premiered in London in September of 1964, with general release in the United Kingdom the following day. They had trouble controlling the crowds, with so many people wanting to see this movie. The United States premiere occurred December 21st, 1964, at the DeMille Theater in New York. The film opened on 64 cinemas across 41 cities and eventually peaked at 485 screens. This is a classic movie. You need to rewatch it. I am still, to this day, astounded that this was allowed to be shown. It just is over the top as far as the censors go for that day and age. And being a kid growing up in that time frame, that made you want to see it that much more. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.